Good afternoon everybody and welcome to this week's BizSmart Lunch and Learn webinar. As you know, we run weekly webinars aimed to provide advice and share knowledge on key business topics and specialist subjects. Joining me today is BizSmart Select member Sharon Trueman from Sharon Trueman Photography. Sharon, can I just ask you to introduce yourself this afternoon, please?
Hello, I'm Sharon from Sharon Trueman Photography. I have a studio in Aswood Bank in Redditch where I operate from. I photograph all kinds of commercial work. We run beginners sessions and intermediate workshops from there. We do your family portraits, your pet portraits, your newborn baby photos. We're very busy and it's a nice relaxed environment there. Give you a nice warm friendly welcome if ever you are passing on to pop in and say hi.
Thank you, Sharon. Sharon will be talking today about creating the perfect image. Can I ask you, if you have any questions throughout the session, if you could post them on your question function on your screen, and then Sharon will answer them all at the end of the session. We'll switch the webcam off now and you'll be able to see the whole presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, so we're talking today about creating the perfect image. Research shows that when we meet someone for the first time, we've usually decided in the first 15 seconds if we like that person. I believe this also applies to images. So when we're going for that business meeting, that interview, we'll make sure that we look as smart as we possibly can. This also applies to any photographs that you're going to be putting up on your website, on your Facebook page, on your LinkedIn profile. We need to remember to make as much effort with our images as we do when we meet people face to face. We're surrounded in the current climate with things such as Flickr, LinkedIn, Twitter, mobile phones, laptops, eBay. Pretty much everywhere we look, we come across images. And the better we can make these images appear, the better representation of you and your company and your products. So to promote ourselves as best as we possibly can, we need to make sure that those first impressions really count. We want to make sure that we can stand out from the crowd, so our images need to be different. They need to be original. They need to be very visually interesting, and they need to give us that competitive edge. As well as advertising the product, we're also advertising the company. So whether we're looking on billboards, online, vehicle advertising, YouTube, leaflets, food packaging, signage, we are surrounded by these images, and sometimes they're more obvious than others. So what makes a good image great? That's the all-important question. There are a lot of reasons that you can turn a good image into a great image, and we're going to have a look at some of these now. Some of our images will have that wow factor, and you'll notice that when you are walking down a street, or maybe you're sat on a train or flicking through a magazine, that you will be drawn to a particular image. And there'll be a lot of reasons for this, and it could be the composition of the image, it could be the lighting, it could be the subject matter. There are lots of different reasons why we may be drawn to one particular image, but we will stop and look at an image for a few seconds longer to some other images which we'll just flick by. So the next time you stop and look at an image, have a look more carefully as to the reasons why you've been drawn into that particular image. I like to think that the more original we can be, that will give us a uniqueness and give us that creative edge to allow us to stand out from the crowd. So to make our good images great, the first thing we need to look at is our equipment. You don't need very expensive equipment, but some basic tools will really help you on your way. Camera, tripod or a flat surface or a table, good natural light, or if we haven't got good natural light, we'll look at using artificial light. Reflectors, or a reflective surface that we can use, such as tin foil or a white reflective surface. Good backgrounds, not cluttered backgrounds. The subject or product that we will be photographing, and lots of patience. So with your equipment, there are some basics that you just need to be aware of. So first of all, make sure you've got a memory card in your camera. Make sure that your battery is fully charged and ready to go. Give that lens a really good clean, not with your jumper, with a nice soft lens cleaning cloth. And where appropriate, make sure you have permission to photograph your subject. If necessary, if you're using a person within the image, obtain a release form so that should you put that image in the public domain, you have the authority to do so. The next thing to look at to make your good image great is the location. So are you going to be photographing indoors or outdoors? If it's outdoors, be aware of the weather, the forecast, if it's raining or low light. If it's very bright and sunny, you need to have really have a good scout out for your backgrounds initially. And backgrounds are important. We need to make sure the background fits in within the image. And we need to make sure it's not a cluttered background and there's nothing distracting within the background. And then we need to look at how and where we take the camera from, the camera angle. So are we going to do it in a portrait orientation or a landscape orientation? Can we get low down or get higher up? Maybe we can put the angle on a slight slant to give you a quirky look to your images. There are lots of things you can do with the camera angles to again stand out from the crowd and be different and give your image a different feel. Make sure you've got the necessary permissions if you're photographing on somebody's property or their property appears within the image. And don't worry about how many times it takes to get that shot. It's digital, so you can just delete the images that aren't usable and really get that all-important money shot. So with your preparation, if the subject matter is a person, you need to stand back and take an objective look at them. Do they need to have a makeover? Are they neat and tidy? Is their tie straight? Posture, are they sitting up nice and straight? And the all-important expression. It's not your school photo. You've not just got 2 seconds to get the shot. And remember, this image will probably sit on your website or your Facebook page or a LinkedIn page for quite a few months to come. So to get it right first time and not then think back, I wish I'd have straightened my tie or brushed my hair or that kind of thing. Just make sure it looks really good. If it's products that you're actually photographing, then you need to make sure that it's at the right angle, it's a good representation of the product, that it's nice and clean. Look out for fingerprints on any shiny surfaces. Be aware of any reflections on any mirrored surfaces. It's a good idea to wear some soft cotton gloves, which you can get from any kind of chemist, if you are handling anything that will leave a fingerprint or a mark on the image, and make sure it's had a good polish beforehand. Try your different camera angles as well. And is colour important to you in the image? If so, bold, bright colours work really well. Or maybe that you're going to look for a black and white striking image. Monochrome can be quite a powerful effect to have on your images, with a really good contrast on the blacks as well. And less can be more, so keep it simple. So as we mentioned, monochrome or colour, this really can change the way an image looks. I always recommend that you photograph in colour initially and then change your image to black and white later on. This way you're leaving your options open. You can have a look at the two side by side to see which gives the better impression. If you do decide that you want to go back to colour later on, you will have that original file size to be able to do that, whereas if you initially take your image in black and white, you won't be able to revert back to colour later on. It's also quite flattering on skin tones, a black and white image. So the elements that really make a good image great are lighting, composition, expression, content and background, and depth of field. So we're going to look at these individually now. First of all, lighting. Check your exposure. So by this I mean check it's not too light or too dark, that the image looks good. Have a look that you've not got what we call any blown out areas where the image has gone too bright and you've lost detail, or that you've not got any areas that are too dark within the image where again you'll start to lose detail in the shadow areas. So just make sure that your lighting is correct. Natural light is a lovely light to photograph with. It's a much softer light. It's kind of on skin tones and you do kind of avoid shadows. If you can work with good natural light, if you're indoors, move your subject or product near to a window or a doorway where you can get a good stream of natural light coming in. If you're finding that it's not a nice, bright, sunny day, what you can do to help the natural light is use a reflector. You don't need to go to the expense of buying a reflector, but what you can do is use some tin foil over a piece of card or a white reflective surface. And if you hold that at the right angle so that the light bounces off it back onto your subject, you will actually get a much better result and be able to fill in the shadow areas. If it's not a good daylight with lots of natural light coming in, you can then resort to artificial light. So you can use your flash, you can turn the lights on indoors. All of these will help actually lighten the image for you. Check your white balance. This is a function on the camera where you can actually adjust the white balance. So if you are working under fluorescent lights or tungsten lights or different artificial light, you may end up with a colour cast on your image. And to avoid this, if you click your white balance function and look at the options there, run off a few test shots, try your daylight and your cloudy options to see which gives you the best result, closest to the natural light that you want to achieve. And finally, you have an exposure compensation button on your cameras, and again this will help with lighting the whole image. It usually has a little plus or minus symbol on this button or on this function, and this is a very quick and easy way of actually increasing the image, the light on the image, or darkening the image. So once you've taken your photograph, if you have a look and you decide it's too light, if you hit the plus or minus and take it down to minus half a stop or 1 stop and reshoot the image, you will find that that's actually made that image darker. And the same is true vice versa. So if you have an image that is too dark and you want to lighten it up, just hit the plus or minus, take it up a stop and retake that image and you'll find it's a lot brighter. If you just remember with exposure compensation, minus is negative, it will darken the image, and plus is positive, it will lighten the image for you. So it's a really simple way of adjusting the exposure within your images. There's just an example there, that's on a Sony camera, but you can see they quite often give you what's known as a shortcut button to be able to access these really useful functions. So that's your plus and minus button. You would hit that and then move your dial until you see it go up or down, whichever is relevant for you. There are some other issues you might come across with lighting. A backlit situation, which is the top image there, is quite a common situation. It's where you'll have something within a window frame, and when the camera takes the image, it takes the whole of the lighting situation into account, and the sensors will read for the whole of the scene, whereas the backlight situation means that there's one small area coming out in shadow. You can avoid this, and you would just go into your metering modes and change it to center weighted or spot metering, and that's telling the camera that you don't want to take the whole of the scene into account, just the very center of the viewfinder is where you want it to take its light reading from. So again, quite a simple, straightforward method of just correcting any of those backlighting issues that you might come across. Next, we're going to look at composition. So that's really where you put what within your viewfinder. There are some composition rules that can help you out and make you think about what goes where. One of them is the rule of thirds. This is quite a common composition rule, and if you imagine a grid splitting your image into thirds, you will take your image from the centre, the subject of your image, out to the centre and put it into the top third, the bottom third, to the left or to the right. And that will give you a much more creative image. It will make your image a lot more interesting by offsetting the subject matter. So instead of us looking at the image and seeing something plonked in the middle where we would normally expect to see it, it will be on the left or the right, or maybe offset slightly. And again, it just captures our attention. You can also use things like foreground interest. So if you've got a large scene, by popping something in the foreground, can really add impact to the image. So for your landscapes, it could be that you'll put a tree or a structure in the foreground. It could be that you'll leave some foliage in the foreground. If it's a beach scene, maybe you'll pick up on some rocks or bucket and spade, that kind of thing. But having foreground interest does add a sense of depth to the image. Framing the image, this is another way of actually composing your image nicely. So it could be that you choose to frame your image with bordering it with some trees. It could be through a brick window with a hole cut out for the window, and you'll shoot through that, which gives a nice natural framing. Just adds impact to the image again. Fill in the frame. This can be done in two ways. You can zoom in if you have a telephoto zoom lens, or you can actually move closer to the subject. And again, this can be a powerful way of impacting your image by filling the frame completely with the subject matter. Another thing to look out for is your leading lines. These can be any kind of natural leading lines that are around us, railway lines, pathways, rivers, streams, bollards, and again it will draw your viewer into the image. So if you can have a leading line flowing from left to right, that's a nice natural flow of a leading line. Our eyes are used to reading from left to right, so again it sits very comfortably when somebody's looking through your images. And just be aware of the angles again that you take the image from. You know, try and be different and try different angles to see which impacts your image mostly. So now we're going to look at expression. Expression is as important as the technical stuff. So you know, if you need to go onto automatic mode or a program mode where the camera will do all the technical side of the exposure for you, you can then concentrate on building a rapport with your subject, encouraging those natural emotions. If you get them to chat about things that they're interested in, you'll find that they'll start to relax. If you get your subject to smile, then that in itself will encourage a smile. If you start to look through some images where there are people smiling, you'll find that you automatically start to smile back yourself. Again, it's a nice friendly way to bring that into your images. You can always fall back on the test shot. So if you have got a subject that is particularly nervous or camera shy, if you just tell them to relax, then the first few shots you're taking are just purely test shots to look at the lighting. Then you'll find that you get that relaxed and not the tense look that you get with a cheesy camera going. Okay, so going on to the content and the background, you need to make a decision what the image is about, what you want it to say to your clients. So if you need to crop in and avoid distracting things within the image, then do that. Again, be aware of your background. So the background needs to add to the image. It needs to support the image and not detract or overtake from the image. So you can, if for example you've got a handshake, you're depicting some clients shaking hands, a normal office setting as a background will be absolutely fine for that kind of thing. Or it could be that it's a product you're selling and you don't want anything distracting in the background. So a nice well-ironed white sheet or white piece of plastic to put that product on is the best kind of thing. Again, look for originality and uniqueness. We all look around on the different options to get ideas, but put your own spin on it and make it relevant to what's the product you're selling. One of my clients actually, she designs her own children's knitwear range, and she asked me to photograph the knitwear range, but she was coming unstuck as to what background to use. Now, this particular children's knitwear range was made from something called yak wool, which is very friendly on the skin, and I decided that the huge wool balls of yak wool made the perfect backdrop. So by just laying the items on top of these, it was relevant to the product, but also again added and supported the products within the background. Look out all the time for different textures, colours and patterns, because again this will be standing out within your images. It will be really creative, and it will draw people to your images. Depth of field is a great way to add impact to your image. A sharp depth of field will really make the subject stand out. If you're not sure of what depth of field looks like, it's where the background is very, very soft, but then you'll have something really standing out within the image. You can create your own depth of field by using Aperture priority mode on your camera. So if you've got a tripod or a table or a flat surface, you can support and steady the camera on. If not, if you tuck your elbows in as close as possible to your body, hold your camera in a really firm grip. If you can rest your elbows on your knees or on something to, again, give you a bit more support. You need to look for your f-stop number. And remember, a small f-stop number when you're on Aperture priority mode, something like 3.5 or 4.5, will give you a really sharp depth of field. So you have a lovely soft background, but you'll have very sharp subjects standing out. Okay, and that again is a very creative way of making your good image great. Just to show you where you'll find your Aperture priority mode, if you look on the big top dial on the top of the camera, and you'll look for A for Aperture, or if you use Canon, it'll be AV, which stands for Aperture value. And then you just turn the whirly dial to see your 4.5 f-stop appear on your LCD screen. Okay, so what next? So you've now managed to achieve your great images. You need to actually protect them. If you are going to put any images on any kind of social media, it's a good idea to copyright and protect your image so that everybody knows they belong to you. So a simple copyright symbol with your name and the year is fine, just so that somebody doesn't then start to copy it and use it on other sites. Once you've taken your images, don't forget to back them up. Okay, it's really important that you've got a second backup, just in case your computer hard drive does fail. If you have it backed up in a separate place, you can always call back on that at a later date. So to summarise, we're going to actually make sure we've checked our equipment, making sure its batteries are charged, lenses are clean. Not forgetting first impressions count, so the image that we finally settle on has to have that wow factor and stand out from the rest. Making sure that the image can be as best as it possibly can be, so making sure there's no ugly shadows, no fingerprints, no reflections that we don't want, nothing distracting in the background, get the lighting right, set the scene. So take some time to think about what is where within your image, what the background is, and whether it's right to shoot it indoors or outdoors. Just imagine you're taking a holiday photo and you want that person to think that they're actually there. Think about what goes where, so your composition within the image and within the viewfinder. You know, if you can offset it, it will not only draw people towards your images, but it will allow you extra space on the image if you need to put any text to talk about that image or advertise the product. get creative and have a look at it objectively. So does the image impact in the way you want it to, in a good way? And back up and protect your images. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed that session. If you've got any questions, Caroline's going to have a look now.
Perfect, thank you so much, Sharon. Okay, first question we've had come through. How do you get a natural smile and avoid the cheesy grin?
Okay, that's a good question. A lot of people will actually put on what we call that camera smile. So one of the best ways to avoid this is to ask the person initially not to smile, and then to think about the corners of their mouth and raising the corners of their mouth until you get just enough to get a nice natural smile. And that way you can control the smile rather than it being too much or not enough.
Okay, thank you for that. Another question, how can you avoid blinking with the camera flash?
Okay, again, this is another common problem, and a lot of people will blink as soon as the flash fires. You can go on to burst mode, which means you can take a series of shots quickly. So within burst mode, you will usually have 6 or 7 shots taken in a continuous mode. So hopefully one of those will not be a blink. The other way you can avoid blinking is to actually ask the person to close their eyes, count to 3, and on number 3, you actually take the shot, which is when they open their eyes, and that will avoid a blink.
Thank you. Another question's come through. How do I stop images from being pixelated?
Okay, you need to look at the file size of your image. On average, a normal JPEG will sit at around 4 megabytes. So if your file size is any smaller than that, when you go to enlarge it, you will see a pixelization effect on that.
Thank you. We've got one more question come through now, so if anyone's got any more, if you want to send them to us. How can I avoid sunspots and glares? Okay, sunspots are the little round discs that you sometimes see on your images if you are photographing outdoors and the sun gets into the lens. It usually appears in a really awkward spot on somebody's face or just in the image where you don't want it, and it's made up of a series of colours. So to avoid sunspots, if you actually use a lens hood, which is a plastic hood that fits over the end of your camera, that will help reduce them. You can also use what's called a circular polarizer, and that's a filter that you can put on the end of the lens, and that will actually reduce sunspots and help minimise any glare as well. Okay, thank you. I don't think there are any more questions coming through. I will send everybody that has joined us today Sharon's details, so if you have any other questions then you can contact her direct. But thank you, Sharon, that was a great session. I'll also send out a copy of Sharon's presentation as well. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you can join us again same time next week, where we'll be joined by select member Paul Rhodes, who will be talking to us about the benefits of working remotely. Many thanks then. Bye.
Bye.